Four men, one dream, united by the written word. This is the Crew Reviews.
That didn't really move the needle for me.
Dude, that was
Spent a
so.
lot of time on that, and that's what you came up with.
How much time did you spend on
We're
that?
working on it for days.
I mean,
Were you trying to do a Jocko voice there?
yeah, it sounded a little bit.
Jocko.
Dude, it was so pathetic.
Jocko when he was 3, maybe.
I
This
need
isn't gonna
another
work,
drink.
guys.
Yeah, all right.
All right, guys, that didn't work. Let's try something different. Sweltering hot July night in New York City. Four strangers drawn together. Was it by hope? Was it by desperation? Or simple fate? In the frenzied hours that would follow, these four souls would be bound together by a common goal and forged in the crucible at Thriller Fest into an unstoppable force for good. The publishing world would never be the same again. They would never be the same again.
Is he done?
Okay, can I stop recording now?
Did he finish?
Oh my God. What?
That was worse.
Hang on. Oh. All right.
We're not going to go with that, right?
We'll let's circle back to that when we get into our meeting here.
Fair enough.
Okay, come on, Chris. We need something good here. Come on.
Oh, I got something good. You guys ready? All right. A long time ago in a galaxy.
Oh,
Far,
my
far.
God, you went there.
Oh, no.
Ah.
No.
Serious?
Yeah.
You want Disney throwing us in jail for that sort of thing? Come
It's
on, man.
classic.
I know it's classic, but somebody owns that copyright.
Fine.
All right. I have an idea. You guys hang tight, and I'll be right back, okay?
Gotta be an improvement over that one.
Where the hell's he going?
Welcome back. The last time we were together, our intrepid travelers had just arrived in New York City on a sweltering July day. Let's find out what happens next in the chapter titled L'équipe assemblée.
All right. Would you guys? Heathens. You don't know what true art really is.
Look, guys, the whole point of this is to promote books and talk with authors and to have a little fun. That's what we're supposed to be doing here.
Okay.
Hell, then why not just say that?
Welcome to the first episode of the Crew Reviews. It's your source for everything related to books and authors. Tonight, we're starting with a bang. We have Jack Carr for you. For those of you who don't know, Jack was a veteran of the Navy SEALs, served for over 20 years, and after he got out, he decided he was going to start writing books. And Jack's first book, Terminalist, came out in 2018. Big success, grew a great following, and he's followed up this year with True Believer, which came out in July. And currently he's working on his third book coming out in the spring called Savage Son. Just to let everyone know, at the end of the podcast, we are going to tell you how you can win a personalized copy of Jack's newest book, True Believer. So stay to the end because you're going to want to win this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting a text message from Jack Carr, and Jack's been waiting 30 minutes for us. So let's get this thing started.
Let's do it.
Somewhere, a true believer is training to kill you.
Gunmen affiliated with Islamic terrorist group Al-Shabaab stormed the University
Four
of
masked gunmen attacked the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi.
ISIS members armed with assault rifles and explosives.
Two Islamic terrorists.
Authorities have recognized weapons.
He's training day and night. His run ends when the enemy stops chasing him. He doesn't care how hard it is. He knows he only wins or dies. He doesn't go home. He is home. He only knows the cause.
We are back with Mr. Jack Carr, someone who the four of us are excited to talk with today and talk about his new book, True Believer, and also probably venture into his next book, which is Savage Son. So, Jack, we've already talked about your introduction earlier in the show, so you know who you are, and we don't need to repeat that. So we're going to dive into some questions, and looking forward to hearing your response.
Let's do it. Yeah.
First question, though, I got a serious one.
Podcast for you guys. We got to talk about that.
This is true.
This is the first pod. You guys are awesome. And so for everyone listening or watching, I could not believe that all the audio and video worked right off the bat. Because usually when you're doing one of these things, even with people that are well-versed in it, the stuff doesn't work. You're going around, you're troubleshooting, figuring out audio, figuring out video. You guys got it dialed. You guys are pros.
Yeah.
We're taking ourselves seriously, but not too seriously. So.
That's good stuff, man.
And
Awesome.
speaking of seriously, so our first question, and we're jokesters, we'll probably get you to laugh a little bit, say a few stupid things next 30, 40 minutes, but I want to start with a real serious question. Reach back here, and we have this beautiful cover. Of course, you've seen this a few times. I believe I was there the first time you saw the hardcover.
Hey, Ben. Yes.
Who's the actor here, though? That's my first question. Who is the actor? Is it James Reese, first of all?
Oh, yes. They had to find someone a lot better looking that would sell more books. So we just found a guy and asked him to come inside and do a little photo shoot. So it was close enough. We figured that it would work. And
well, for future books, will we maybe have a bearded Jack Carr on the back cover?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
We'll see. Actually, I kind of like surprising people, though, for those that don't follow on social channels or the website or whatever else, to show up somewhere and they expect the clean cut photo in the back to show up, and then in comes this
the talking point.
mountain man. So I kind of like that.
I think
Absolutely.
you could walk right by me without the beard, and I would not even notice it was you.
Yeah, and you can turn the hat around backwards. You can switch hats. Those sorts of things you can do to keep it.
Good. Total counter surveillance. That's
it.
you.
That's right. It's hard to leave the past behind. Old habits die hard.
Brother, I know it.
I was going to say, speaking of the past, clearly you were well trained. So,
well, I was trained. I don't know.
Well, we will say well trained. The four of us think you were well trained. All four of us have really obviously talked to you. We've met you. We've read about your past. So really, in learning more about you from just other interviews and in speaking with you, really as you were a young person, you really apparently had two goals. One of them was to be a Navy SEAL, and the other one was to write books. Two pretty ambitious goals, obviously, and two goals that you actually successfully accomplished. Probably something you've been asked before, but maybe in a different way, is how do you think your military training and your time as a Navy SEAL, how did it prepare you for the publishing world? And do you see similarities between those two worlds? Because most people would think polar opposite. You write books, you're a Navy SEAL, you're the tip of the spear, has nothing to do with each other. But I'm guessing there's some parallels you could probably point to as you talk about those two careers that you've had, and now with the publishing career that you're having. So if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So there's parallels, there's overlap, there's things that don't translate. So there's all those, and those are the two things I wanted to do since I was a little kid, and I knew the one had to come first, just because you're on a timeline there. You have to get in the military when you're younger, and so that was going to come first. But so there's a couple ways to talk about that. One, obviously, the experience in the military informs my writing, and um, that background, the technical stuff, the tactics, all that, the feelings and emotions behind certain events that I was involved with downrange, all find their way into the pages of the novel.
Sure.
The other part, and this is part when I first talked to Brad Thor when I was, I think, 4 months into writing the first book, and he said, "Hey, the only difference between a published author and an unpublished author is that the published author never quit." And Brad was then the only person I knew in publishing, and I had only known him for about 10 minutes on the phone when he told me that. But it really hit home with me, because that's how you get through buds, and that's how you get through life. The same way, you just don't quit and you keep moving forward. So I was like, oh, that's all it takes. Well, hey, I got that down. So
Do that.
so that really, that really just kind of meant something to me, because the bell that follows you around while you're in Hell Week at Buds, the bell that's always there throughout the entire time you're at Buds, we make it very easy to self-select out of the program by going up and just ringing that thing 3 times, and off you go. So just in writing and publishing in life, you just don't ring the bell. Now, on the other side, so what I did for those 20 years, or for 16 of them, let's say, or 15 of them, 14 of them, whatever, was adapt and was learn, because the enemy's doing that to us downrange, and we need to do it faster than they're doing it in order to stay on top. And it's often hard to do when you're part of a gigantic bureaucracy. But at the same time, so then taking those lessons from aggressively solving problems on the battlefield, from learning, from adapting, then just bringing that into publishing, where I didn't have the baggage of someone that, say, comes from, well, any sort of a background where they're doing some marketing, they're doing some advertising, they're doing some branding, they're doing some co-branding. Like, I had no baggage. So I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even realize there was a business side to writing and publishing.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, I thought you just wrote and sent in a book. Like, I thought that was all there was to it. And I was like, I guess I'm going to have to do a little bit on social media, I guess. But that was it. That was about all the thought I put into it. But so I wasn't jaded by anything. It was just a clear lens in which I looked at a problem set, looked at opportunities, just like I would on the battlefield, looked for emerging opportunities to take advantage of, and just looked at publishing with that same lens. There was no, well, this is how I did it at my last job, or this is what we did last time, or this is what everybody does when you do something like this. Like, there was none of that. It was just like, hey, look at it, and this is what you can do in the social media space. Okay, or what are these people doing? You have a swipe up here, and what's that? And there was no sort of a I don't know, there was just a clear lens. So I just looked at it like, okay, what are the opportunities here? And how do I connect with readers? How do I build a foundation? How do I build a reader base? How do I get the word out there? And then I just did those things. So it was about really as simple as that.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with that one too, of saying, in that regard, for years you were told not to do any of that stuff. They did not want you using Facebook, doing social media, anything. And then that mindset of flipping to all of a sudden, you have to do it. You have to market yourself. You have to let people know who Jack Carr is, so that you can get your books out there.
That's right. It's a little strange. So then it's shifting, which is something I'm going to explore in future novels. So when I came up, obviously there was, when I came in the military, there was no Facebook. There was no MySpace came on like 10 years.
Yeah.
But there wasn't. No one knew what social media was,
Right.
So there was nothing like that to deal with. Now, if you come into the military at age 18, 19, 20, 21, and you're in the military and you're doing things in special operations in particular, and you don't have a social media presence, now you're the outlier. So now you're the one that pops on a radar, because you don't have something like that everybody else almost in the world, in your demographic, has. So it's a very interesting thing to have to deal with and have to tackle, because then you have facial recognition that goes along with that. And
right.
Something on the darker side of intelligence circles, well, maybe you went somewhere under a different name at some point, and now you have facial recognition technology, and you come across a border again. So there's all sorts of interesting things like that to explore as technology shifts and moves forward, that people have to deal with in intelligence circles and in special operations circles in real life. So those are things that I'm sure will find their way into future novels.
Cool.
But yeah, I didn't know the difference between a post and a friend and a whatever about a year and a half ago. I had no idea.
Oh, I can echo that, man. I didn't know any of that stuff.
It's crazy. And I was like, I kind of reluctantly pulled in, it's like, oh, I guess you got to do this sort of thing, which means then you got to learn it. So if I'm going to go in, I'm going to go all in and kind of figure this thing out. So I continue to learn, continue to adapt, and I didn't, and I guess just be me at the same time. So that's kind of just how I handle it.
I think we can all say that he's adapted pretty well to it, though.
Yeah, he did okay.
Just a little bit.
He's okay.
Yeah, it's a strange animal. It's a crazy thing. You don't want to overshare. There's things I don't talk about. But I guess the good thing is that it's impossible for me not to be just me. So so I guess that's good, because doing things in this, sharing a picture and writing a couple words or whatever else, it would be very difficult to just not be yourself, or to try to play a part, or to be something that you're not, or pretend you're something. Like, that would take a lot of effort, and I don't have that kind of time, energy.
And that comes out too if you do that.
People recognize it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably helped. Is just that I just dove into it as as me, and just try to do it in a thoughtful way, I guess, and try to connect with people that way, because that's just who I am anyway. So, but it's interesting. I love learning. I guess I'm a lifelong learner. So if I'm diving into this sort of thing, to the business side of publishing, then I want to learn it, and I want to do it well, and maybe adapt and maybe figure some things out along the way that I haven't done before. So that's kind of how
Pretty cool stuff. So Jack, you talk about when you were growing up being a librarian's kid. Like, your mom was a librarian, and you'd spend so much time in the library surrounded by books. How does that kid, go to being a Navy SEAL? Like, were there books that you were reading? Was there any other profession? You probably would have been the best at whatever you did. So if you ended up, hey, I want to be the garbage man, you probably would have been the best garbage man.
Knocked it out of the park.
Right. You would have. Right. You're like, I want to be the best CPA. You would have been, hands down the best CPA. Spreadsheets and everything, right? No.
Limitations.
We found his Achilles heel.
Man once said. So I do recognize my limitations.
But
outsource that completely.
But how does 8-year-old Jack go from the library to, hey, I'm going to be in the military? Did you have family that was in the military? Were you following in anyone's footsteps? And was it always the Navy? Did you have other recruiters? Did you go to like the Army, the Coast Guard? Was there any other option? Like, where did that come from?
No, so really no other options. I wanted to do it since I was a little kid, and before age 7. I know it sounds very strange talking about before age 7, but I knew I wanted to be just in the military in general, and that's because I grew up with my grandfather's. He was killed in World War II, killed off Okinawa, 1945, near the end of the war. He was a Corsair pilot, which was the plane with the gull wings.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Bob Black Sheep
Carriers.
That was my great show. I love that.
And right around that time, there was the show Black Sheep Squadron with Robert Conrad, which probably gave me a little bit of my leadership style, just from watching that show at such an early age. They were always drinking and fighting. So I knew it was going to be the military. Like, I was going to follow my grandfather's footsteps. I was going to serve my country.
Right.
Those silk maps they used to give to aviators back then. So if they hit the water, they wouldn't disintegrate like a paper map would. I had his wings, his medals, pictures of his squadron. I'd make models of that plane and all that. So I knew I was going to do something in the military. Just didn't know what it was, but for whatever reason, I was always drawn to just that primal side of everything in life. From hunting and fishing and running around the outdoors and all that sort of thing. I was just drawn to that more basic pursuit, but I guess that might be the right word. So when I found out what SEALs were, I was like, oh, this is it. It's on. Crawling through the jungles and ambushing. Back then it was all Vietnam stuff. So
yeah,
right.
And we ambush some BC patrol in the jungle, and you're in jeans and flip flops, and you're carrying that stone machine gun, and you're going back and drinking. Like, these are my people. So, they got me at a very early age, and of course I told my mom that's what I wanted to do, and she took me down to the library and did some research, because we'd always go to the library anytime we were interested in something, and found out what SEALs were. And back then there was hardly anything written about SEALs. Early 80s, you could read it all in an hour. Now for a kid, let's say a kid age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that decides they want to join the military, wants to go into special operations, and then they Google like unending
Yeah.
information, some good, some bad. But you'll never get to the end of it. Back in 1980, 81, 82, 83, you could get to the end of it. You could find the end of the internet in about an hour. So written about SEALs. And of course, a lot of the things that were written about SEALs came from the pages of fictional thrillers. And not just SEALs, it was typically some sort of background in special operations, some sort of background in intelligence circles, Phoenix program stuff, Vietnam, that sort of thing. But most of the protagonists from those stories by David Morrell, Nelson DeMille, J.C. Pollock, A.J. Quinnell, Tom Clancy, all those guys in the 80s, like they had that kind of a background that I wanted one day. So jumped into those novels, and I didn't know when the next one was coming out. And back then, not many guys were on the novel a year program. It was like, when is the next David Morrell novel coming out? Like, no one knows. Like, how are you supposed to find out?
Yeah.
You can't Google it. You can't call them. You can't call the publisher. Who knows? I guess you can ask the librarian. They're going to do the same thing. They'll be like, I don't know, when one shows up.
So 7-year-old Jack Carr is as focused as Jack Carr is today. How crazy is that?
Much. People and I have friends from those days. They're like, you are the exact same person. On the playground,
Isn't that what selection's all about?
To weed out. I guess to weed out those that they shouldn't be there. But I guess I was destined to be there from an age. So I stayed focused on it, and then most of the things that I did, as far as physically and mentally, for training, were things. Back then there was no CrossFit, right? So, I was doing CrossFit-esque type things. Like I'd do pull-ups and then I'd sprint up the hill, that sort of thing. I didn't know it wasn't called anything. It was called pull-ups and sprints.
Working out.
Mountain bike, I'd trail run, backpack. So you have weight on my back and I'm moving through the mountains. All those things. I was reading military history, studying as much as I could as far as tactics would go. Is there anything I could do to prepare myself for the future that I knew where I was headed? Print media back then, it was the newspaper. That's what we got. Out about what Mujahideen were. That's what I found out about, Soviets. I missed the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, but I wasn't too far behind. I was a couple years behind that. And then I'd just start reading the paper, and I would always be drawn to that world news section. What's going on in Afghanistan?
Right.
People fired. What is this? So I was always just fascinated with that sort of a thing, and of course all the terrorist events that came up in the 80s, and they'd always reference other events that happened in the 60s and 70s. So I'd always just be fascinated, like Beirut bombing, the barracks, the embassy, all the airliners that were hijacked. Like all those things really made an impact at that time in my life when I knew that I was going into the military. I knew it was going to be special operations. I knew it was going to be SEAL teams. I knew this was going to be my enemy, for like my generation's fight somehow, like in the 80s, like I knew it. And so I prepared for it. So I think all that preparation, like I didn't plan it this way, but having that base and that foundation of studying all that from an early age, having all those events really have an impact on me. And then also reading all that fiction, like I didn't plan it that way, but all of that stuff gave me a great foundation for doing what I'm doing today. So I couldn't really write a better background for what I'm doing, because as I'm writing, these different things pop into my head that I can weave into the storyline, and these different events that I can even maybe just put a one word in there that maybe is going to make sense to like 4 people, but those 4 people that be like, oh,
So very authentic.
I like to do that.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty cool stuff.
Like, did you see the sunrise? You just throw that in there.
Yes. Exactly.
I'm always looking for the Magnum references. If I can find the Magnum references, I succeeded. So
you found him in True Believer, right?
Oh yeah.
yes.
Okay, I made him a little more obvious in True Believer. There's one in Savage Son that I can think of right now. That's fair. That's you guys will get.
Okay.
Got to work with those into the storyline as well. It's just kind of.
Those are the best, man. Those are like little Easter eggs. You
right.
find them.
They are.
Our generation members.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Hey, I had a few months ago, I had my first release, and I remember kind of that first review that I read that wasn't, somebody involved in the publishing process itself. And it wasn't too long ago that you were in that boat. And so I was just curious, what were your emotions, or what were you feeling when you opened up that first review and you're just holding your breath? What was that like for you?
Well, luckily, I think the blurbs came in first, which is all because they're going to be good. So the blurbs first from big names that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I have this guy that's give me this blurb, and he's saying it's so great. So luckily though that came in first, so that was helpful. And then before I looked at any reviews, I thought about them, and I thought, okay, there's going to be bad ones. There's going to be bad ones. There's going to be some in the middle. And so prepare for the bad ones. Like people think seals have thick skin, and maybe a lot of them do. But I'm human. You don't want to do any bad ones. But some people out there, man, are just mean on those things.
Yeah.
I would never write a bad review for anyone on anything. Like if I didn't like it, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't review it.
Right.
At all. But some people really take some time and effort and spend a lot of time being very negative. Hopefully there's not that many, but one did pop up the other day that was interesting. And, obviously it wasn't this person's kind of book. And they said there was a contrived scene where the author tries to humanize his protagonist by contriving or imagining a scenario where he could have shot somebody running away from the fight and chose not to. And I was like, that's interesting because that's a real story. That guy, we had pretty much rules of engagement were interpreted as anyone in the city. They've been given 2 weeks to get out of Najaf. So anyone in there is part of the Jaish al-Mahdi militia, and they all happen to be wearing black for the most part. But it's unusual to have an actual, quote unquote uniform for the enemy. But the rules of engagement were, take this city and let everybody in, it's going down.
Yeah.
So we're in this one crazy where we pushed, anyways, like a 2-week campaign, and we're pushing forward almost day by day, every 2 days or whatever it was, pushing Jaish al-Mahdi militia ahead of us, and then we go forward, take up sniper positions, move in the Bradleys, move in the Abrams, that sort of thing. And we're crossing this street, and I turn my rifle, and there's a guy that's on a bike, and he's just pedaling away from the action. It just meandering, just like he's dressed like a Jaish al-Mahdi guy, and so I have it was an ACOG, I think, on my rifle at that time. We had a bunch of different rifles because it was a 2-week campaign, and the logistics train was strong. But so I came up and I had him in my sights and I was off safe, and I was like, there was just something about it that wasn't right. Like it wasn't right to shoot that guy, and so I just radioed back because we had these different phases of this operation. So essentially every this was already taken. And so a few blocks or something, like a blocking force or a CP, something was behind us. So I just called and let them know, hey, there's a guy on a bike coming your way. Kind of reminded me like an old man just kind of in the street, and you just happen to be wearing what the bad guys were wearing. Bad choice for that day. And then, so I didn't take the shot. And so I feel very good about that. But I used that in the story. I kind of morphed a little bit. I changed it. I think I changed it from Najaf to Fallujah or something. I mean, I changed it a little bit as far.
Of course, you had to contrive it, right?
Exactly.
But it was funny to read that one. I was like, I mean, I guess
guy was probably just a rabbit to pull all the snipers out.
So weird, but so that review struck me as funny. That guy said it was contrived.
Well, we'll invite him to Thriller Fest next year. We'll meet up with him.
But yeah, those ones, and I look at so I'm very lucky that the vast majority of reviews are all very good. But I look at the bad ones as, hey, someone's going to read that and they're going to buy this book because of this bad review. Someone's going to say, oh, there's too much about the gear, there's too much violence, or there's too, whatever. Someone that likes gear and likes violence is going to be like, I want to buy this book.
Yeah.
In my head, anyway, that's how I've chosen to deal with the bad reviews, is that, hey, even those show engagement, and even those actually help you sell the book because they're telling you what they don't like, and that will appeal to someone else. So
that's good.
Absolutely.
That's good advice.
I tend to put that positive.
Well, to build on that, you got your debut novel, The Terminal List, came out, and it was really well received by pretty much everybody. I mean, I honestly, there may have been that guy that complained about it, but everything I saw online, even before I read it, was all very positive. And I read it, and as I told you, it's the best debut I've seen in at least 10 years. And just, it was nonstop action, and everything was phenomenal, and you couldn't ask for a better debut. And so you come out with your second book. And to me, as a writer, I think you took a big risk. I think it paid off incredibly well. But when you started off True Believer the way you did, I'm sure it was a conscious decision to kind of go that route. But did you have any pushback? First of all, did you have any anxiety or fear about kind of taking a different tact? And then did you have any pushback, from your agent, from Emily Bessler, from anywhere else, when you turned in the manuscript?
Right. So definitely I thought about it, and I thought it would be disingenuous to, well, two things. One, just to return to the well and do kind of the same revenge type thriller, but just change it and go international, but have it be the same type of thing, morphed a little bit because the first one worked so well. But the other part is that I started writing this one before I'd even submitted the first one. So it wasn't really like, okay, the first one did well. It had this sort of a plot, this sort of a theme, these things resonated. Like, it was essentially already done, it was too late to go back. But I didn't want to deal with the events of the first novel because they were so traumatic. I thought it would be disingenuous to the reader and to the characters to deal with it in a sentence, deal with it in a paragraph, deal with it in one chapter. So I thought, okay, this is a journey, and I'm very cognizant of the hero's journey throughout history as far as mythologies go. And I couldn't just deal with it like, and then he had all this happen, his family died, his troop got killed, and he whacked all these people on his list, and now he's fine. Now he's going off to save the world.
Right.
I had to continue that journey. Like, he had to learn to live again. He had to find purpose. He had to find a mission. And that's, I have a little bit of experience with that in transition out of the military, and not just mine. I was very fortunate when I transitioned in that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to write. Like, that's it. I knew. A lot of guys don't know what they want to do when they leave the military or leave any, job or have any sort of life transition. Like, it's tough unless you already know that mission, you know your purpose, and you're ready to go and you're passionate about that, what you're going to move into. So I think I'm definitely an outlier as far as that stuff goes, but I've seen so many guys transition from special operations and have a hard time doing it, have a hard time letting go of that life, that I could use that for the hero's journey in True Believer. So he had to learn to live again. He had to actually find out he was literally learning to live again. And then he had to find that purpose. And he found that in repurposing his old skills in Mozambique to help with the poaching problem. And I was on the ground in Mozambique after I retired from the military. So I was taking all these notes out there. I was talking to professional hunters. I was talking to the trackers. I was asking them about all the Chinese influence in the area and illegal and legal mining operations, poaching operations, meat poaching. Do they have to feed these workers somehow? How is that affecting the environment? How do you guys deal with it? So all those things that I got on the ground. And, hey, what kind of languages do you guys speak around here? And I think I have them in the drawers behind me, but I have about 8 or 9, 10, 11, something like that, different pages where I wrote all the different words I wanted to learn in all of these different languages that they had in the area. So I could try to incorporate some of those into the novel. So I really wanted to do that as part of the journey. So, but yes, it was a risk, and I would not have been surprised had Emily Bessler, the editor, taken all of that first part out and said, make this all one paragraph. And I would have said, yes, ma'am.
150 pages.
I wouldn't argue too much. She knows what she's doing. But she didn't really take much out. Like, I did put it down quite a bit, but on my own, but before I gave it to her. But I was surprised that she didn't really take anything out of either, but there was hardly any edits to the terminal list. And I credit that to Stephen Pressfield, who wrote Gates of Fire, Legend of Bagger Vance. But he also has these books on creativity that I'm sure you guys have all read, War of Art, Turning Pro, Do the Work. And either in one of those or in a podcast, it might have been on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he said he would write the theme to his novel on a yellow sticky and put it on his, I think it was a typewriter for him, but in my case, it was this very computer. And I wrote revenge on that yellow sticky, so that if any paragraph, sentence didn't directly, or more important, indirectly, didn't tie back to that theme of revenge, then I got rid of it immediately. And when you read books on writing or talk to authors, usually they say don't edit as you go. I'm the worst at not.
Oh, I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible.
I keep going back and editing. I come back to it. So I do edit as I go, but it really helped to have that yellow sticky with revenge written on it. So that I go back to that. I could just say, oh, does this part really directly or indirectly tie back to that theme somehow? Does it move the story forward? No. Okay, it's out. So I think the editing I did along the way for the first novel really helped out in that there were hardly any edits. She asked me, like, hey, would he really do this here? Would he say this here? And then a third thing that I don't remember. And those were like the only content edits to the first novel.
And those
But
And those instincts are why she's Emily Bessler.
She must have loved you too, man. Can you imagine?
it was awesome. No, she's so wonderful. And yeah, they asked me as soon as she got the manuscript for the terminal list. She went to New York and sat down, had coffee, and I think she wanted to make sure I wasn't a crazy person. And I had like 2.5-hour coffee or something like that. And she was like, "Hey, I want this thing, but you need an agent." And I was like, "What?"
Wow.
And she's like, "Well, hold on." Okay.
Because that's how it works. Yeah.
Well,
thank goodness. So the books I read on writing before I started weren't the ones that told you like the how-to.
Oh yeah.
We weren't get an agent, do this, do that. Like I had no idea about any of that. So the ones I read, the ones that I read on writing were, on writing, Stephen King, successful novelist, David Morrell, all those Stephen Pressfield ones. The one that's, who wrote the one with what he followed Lee Child around, Andy.
Oh.
On my shelf, right back there somewhere. But yeah, Reacher said nothing. Andy Martin. So I read that one, the Jean Le Carré autobiography, which is almost like a.
It's like a novel.
So I read those ones, and then I was like, okay, that's good. I've read enough on how to do this. I'm not going to spend my life reading how other people did this. It's time to get to work.
Time to write it.
Yeah. So I think that what's right as far as how much you should study the craft before you dive in is different. Maybe for some people it's nothing. Maybe for another person it's the one Stephen Pressfield book. Maybe for somebody else it's like 3 books, or and then they dive in. But the important part is that you dive in and just
Well, Jack, let me ask you. So when I left the Secret Service, I was going at 1,000 miles an hour. And then when I stepped back from that profession, I felt like I was crawling, and I dealt with some serious anxiety. And you spoke about it before, when guys come off the teams, they don't know how to deal with the transition, becoming a civilian. And so like that anxiety was real, and it was tough. It was tough to cope and to transition and to take that energy and put it into something else. And I'm just wondering, I mean, you said it before, you knew what you wanted to do. You wanted to write. I mean, did you do that immediately? I mean, did you know that was going to be your coping mechanism to begin with? And did you just jump right in? Like, did you hand in your papers, you put on your civilian clothes, and did you go right into writing? Like,
yeah, I started the year before I got out. So essentially, in the military, when you drop your papers, you're essentially in another pile. Like,
right.
You are not moving forward with us anymore. Now your job becomes to get out of this gigantic bureaucracy. And I felt like I was the first person to do that.
Dude, that's everywhere in the government, Jack. Everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It was awful. Are you kidding me? Like, you don't know the answer to this question. Some people get out of this organization every day. So anyway, I went in this other pile where my job became to get out, which meant going to dental, going to medical, going to these appointments, getting these things signed, turning in gear, whatever, this list you have to go through. And so essentially, like, you're out of the military for all practical purposes. In my case, anyway, about a year before I was actually out for the military. So I had all that time, and I took advantage of that time by using it to write. So I knew that's what I was going to do, and dove right into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't really have that anxiety as far as the transition at all.
Dude, that's awesome.
First, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. Then I'm going to write a book that's going to get picked up by Simon & Schuster and the same editor that Vince Flynn and Brad Thor have. It's going to get optioned by a movie by Hollywood A-lister, and then we're just going to keep going on this train.
Yeah, of course.
That's really how I thought about it. And I just did that. But I got very lucky along the way also.
Well, you make your own luck, Jack. You really do.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's fate, not luck. Fate.
Talent finds a way in this industry.
You're prepared. That's what you were.
Right.
Yeah, there's luck is the residue of preparation, is what an old CO used to tell me.
Yep.
Right.
Jack, I wanted to ask you too, just talking about that. So going from, it's cool to know that you didn't have you had the time to prepare, obviously, and I have a buddy going through, he's in 5th group. I think I might've told you about him in the past. He's doing the same thing. He's 21 years in. So he's coming out, and he went through with me what he's doing for his last year until I think he gets out in March or April. And it's laughable. But so for you, you're out for years. You're a Navy SEAL.
Oh, thank you to the taxpayers for that last year.
What's that?
Thank you to the taxpayers for that last year.
Yeah.
but for that time period, your time is not your own.
The first 19 years, you got your money's worth. So
Yeah.
That's true. That time that you're a Navy SEAL, though, your time is not your own. You know, you're the government, you know, the military is telling you what to do, when to do. You're not able to really tell probably even your wife very often where you're going or maybe how long you'll be gone. Talk about the transition. Then all of a sudden you come into this different life where you're an author, your time becomes your own. However, you also have kids, you're balancing the family, and you're, for all intents and purposes, you're Jack Carr. And right now, Jack Carr is a hot entity. We're wanting to talk to Jack Carr. Lots of people want. So you go from Navy SEAL whose time's not his own to, you know, I joke around with you a little bit. Most of the time I see like pictures of you and stuff. You're like going through an airport. You know, you're going to the next gig. You're going to promote something. You're going to speak to someone. So just talk about kind of that transition, because, you know, it almost is different, but yet it's the same, where your time is probably so well managed, but you have a little more control over it now, clearly.
This is an area where I have to get a lot. I have to improve, and I know I need to improve here. So like this weekend, like we talked a little bit about anxiety. So I finished the third novel at like 4 a.m. on, I guess, Friday night, Saturday morning, and there's a couple of little things I need to do, a couple of tiny little tweaks, like change some things to italics that didn't transfer over from Scrivener when I compiled it and exported to Word. So I know these little things I needed to do, but I also knew that I've been gone quite a bit lately, and the family is missing me. And we had some rain and some hail here on Sunday, and the U.S. Open was on, and I know my wife wanted to watch, and I was watching, and the whole time I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, I got those italics. Those ones didn't have to go back through, and I have to hit those certain things. Oh, wait a sec. There's that one line I forgot to put in that I need to make.
She's not going to watch this, is she, Jack?
Nobody's watching this. So
okay. Yeah, we don't want her to watch, because if so, you were thinking the whole time about the U.S. Open. Think about the U.S. Open.
So I do need to get better about that, because in the military, it was the excuse anyway, is that you're doing it for one, the mission,
right?
And you owe it to the guys, to their family, to be all in. Like that pendulum has to be 100% on the team, on the mission.
Yeah,
no question. You can't do anything else. Like your family comes second, everything comes second to that team and that mission.
Right.
Because it has to. So for me, it's hard to get out and now this is my next mission, and I have to realize that, if I don't do that thing, change that one word into italics tonight, the consequences are not that bad.
Right.
We're not walking into an actual ambush here.
Yeah. So maybe from the wife you are.
But it's hard for me to not do that, to not be at a full-on sprint all the time, because I did it for so long. And people say, oh, it's a marathon, whatever. But I mean, you're in a full-on sprint.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do have a hard time not sprinting all the time in regular life as I move into this next venture, especially when I found out that it's not just writing, it's all this other stuff that
right.
Maybe you don't have to do it, but it certainly helps to do it to build your brand, build your readership, build your foundation, build your future. So I have a hard time letting those opportunities go by, because I look at them as opportunities, or every single second as an opportunity. But I also need to get better at, okay, you know what? Your family's here, and they've put up with a lot over the last 20 years. Your kids are only young for a little bit, and that's an opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I need to get better at taking a breath and being able to put the writing to the side, put the business stuff to the side, and just focus on.
Dude, Jack, the first step of that is recognizing it, and I think you just did. So
yeah,
it's been pointed out to me too. I won't take full credit. My wife's pointed it out a couple times.
Right.
Well, I think no matter what your job is, I think we're all dealing with that in our lives for one way or the other. Anybody that has a family has that challenge, and sometimes we're really good at it, and sometimes we suck at it, to be honest.
We're guys.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But hopefully I'm getting better at it. Hopefully I'll improve in that area, especially now that the third book's done. I wrote an outline for that on the way that Russia a couple weeks ago to do some research and outline the whole fourth novel. So now I'll just transfer those handwritten notes, because I didn't bring a computer or a phone or anything with me to Russia. I just didn't want to have to go through customs, because the third book is a little Russia heavy and not in a positive way for the Russians. So I didn't have to give them interrogation, spent a couple days in an interrogation room. So
Behind enemy lines, Jack Carr.
so I brought a sat phone so I could stay in contact, but phone stayed behind, computer stayed behind.
Yeah.
Else. But I had a notebook, but outlined the whole fourth book on the way there. So now in the next week or so, I'll transfer those written. Hopefully, I can read them notes and put them to Scrivener, so I can start working on the fourth one.
Well, that's a good question, right? So, and I'm a little bit older than you, but not by too much. And, during our time in the 80s, Russia was that was the evil empire, right? And the whole Reagan era. So how was it like kind of being exposed, as a young man in that time frame when Russia really was the chief enemy? And you found yourself back in Russia just here a week or so ago as an ex-Navy SEAL hunting around and out in the weeds out there. Did you have some of those feeling flashbacks like, oh God, I hope they don't know I'm out here?
No, well, a little bit ahead of time, because you fill out a visa application for Russia, and it does ask you your former occupations and if you've ever been in the military and what did you do in the military.
I killed Russian advisors.
So I was like, well, I guess it's better to just be honest. So I was like, Navy. But I didn't get too specific, but I answered honestly and sent it in. But I was kind of worried that, maybe that it flagged something, they would want to talk to me or whatever, but it didn't. And I took a couple other precautions. I had a phone number I could call, whatever. But yes, it was different. And different than Mozambique. So in Mozambique, everybody wanted to help. Everybody wanted to tell that story of what's going on there environmentally, with the Chinese, and more than happy to talk to me about tracking and any question I had, they were right there to answer. Russia, a little different. They were very suspicious asking questions. And I didn't anticipate that. I'm like, oh, totally, they're going to want to talk to me, just like Mozambique.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. I'm going to weave it into the pages of my novel.
I'll make you famous.
Yeah. They were definitely skeptical, like right off the bat. You could tell, like, it wasn't the same talking to them, even though they were talkative people that I was talking to. When I was asking these questions, they were always wondering, like, what is he really asking? I think that's because they have such a long history of getting asked questions by someone not being a good thing.
Right.
I don't want to get asked a lot of questions.
You disappear.
Most of their history, getting asked questions by anyone is not good.
Gulag time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is just kind of part of their DNA now.
Yeah.
So it was definitely noticeable. So I had to pull some things out of there. But I got to work those into the pages of the novel over the last couple of weeks, and like I knew there were, I don't know why I thought this, but I was thinking about how do they get around in the winter and snow machines, sleds, snowmobiles. They are different over there. They have one skid in the front, at least where I was, because as you're going through that tundra and you're going through those forests with the two skids in the front, like we have over here, patch a root, patch a tree, whatever else. So
hooking up
one skid in the front, so it's like a 3-wheeler, that we had in the early '80s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So they had that with snow machines. But yeah, so I got a lot of interesting things like that I got to weave in and watch over Last of the Breed with me. And I didn't bring over my copy from the 80s because I still have the exact one.
So do I.
Yeah, nice. But so I did. I bought another one and brought that one with me because I just felt like I wanted to have that with me in Russia because I still remember reading that the summer that I read it. Remember the pine trees and exactly where I was reading it, and just what an amazing story that was. And I didn't reread it since then, but I wanted to try to capture the spirit of it in this third novel, like the magic of me reading it I think between 7th and 8th grade that summer, and just how amazing that was to read. And I wanted to capture that magic and not necessarily, be influenced more so than just the spirit of it. So I brought the book with me, brought a cool knife with me that almost got confiscated in customs.
Of course.
I'm not allowed to bring. I was so busy, I didn't read the pamphlet on where I was going and what I was going to be doing. But apparently they said don't bring knives over 3 inches. So I brought two, and one was a gigantic hunting knife because I thought it was an old Randall, which is a cool blade, and I wanted to bring that and get a picture of it, and it almost got confiscated. But I think the customs guy that ended up talking to me, I think he was a hunter, and he was like, "All right, just go."
I'm sure the animals over there are kind of big.
There's some big ones. There's some big boys over there.
Yeah, exactly.
I got confiscated on the way out too. A guy in front of me had his knife confiscated, and that's why they were doing the thing as I went through security.
Oh, nice.
No.
So
Thanks for taking one for the team there, buddy.
Yeah, so pro tip, you guys go to Russia. Knives, 15 inches only.
So Jack, I don't know what you're willing to share about Savage Son with us, other than most dangerous game, laughs to the breed aspect. But before you share whatever it is, my question is: this is your third James Reese novel. He's a character that seems like he's built for the long haul, and I mean, I'm sure you've imagined all sorts of different adventures for him. Do you have any plans in the back of your mind? Because you just seem like this person who has the next 40 years planned out. Do you have any plans in the back of your mind for a standalone or another series, or is that even on your radar?
When I first started, I wrote about 6 or 7, maybe 8 different ideas down, executive summaries that I typed out for different ideas. And I chose the Terminal List because I thought it was the most visceral, the most hard-hitting, and the most primal. And honestly, the one that would probably have the best chance of getting noticed by someone in New York. And novels of revenge and movies with revenge themes always resonated with me. I think they resonate with all of us because you can escape into the pages of a novel like that and watch a movie like that. You can't do it in real life, because if you do,
right.
you escape into these pages.
Falling down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Falling down.
Yeah.
But you can in the pages of a novel. So I chose that one. Now, those other ideas are all ones, even if they didn't have James Reese as the protagonist in them as I was doing those executive summaries, they are now all part of, they're in the bullpen.
Okay.
They're all options going forward. Nice. And True Believer was one of those, which made it very easy to move into that one. Like, I knew where the story was going to go before I was even finished with True Believer, or with Terminal List. And I knew that would be that one. And then I knew that Savage Son would be third. And it's the one that I wanted to write first, but I knew that I couldn't start with it. Like, I had to lay a foundation.
Yeah.
Get the characters to a point where they could go be part of this situation that kind of pays tribute to Richard Connell's Most Dangerous Game. I couldn't just start with it.
You gotta get the training wheels off first. Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Number 3, it was ready. It was the right
So number 3 is your passion project?
They all became passion projects. I mean, especially the first one, because it was the first one, and there's so much of me in it, so much of my
right.
Feeling and emotion behind everything that happens in there are all real feelings and emotions. So that became my passion project, I guess you'd say.
Nice.
And the second one, as I started writing that, it's all based on something that happened to me in Iraq in 2006 with an Iraqi special operations guy I was working with. And so that became the basis for book number 2. So that had a lot of me in it, and a lot of the background, and a lot of...
Dude, that's why so many people like you, Jack. You're so authentic. I mean, you write from a standpoint that really no one else in the genre can. I mean, guys can fake it. They can do all the research.
You talking about me?
There, you've done it. You've been in those boots. I mean, it's just crazy.
Appreciate it.
It's amazing.
I read the second one. It's there was an amazing Iraqi officer that I was working with in Iraq, and we're kind of on this best called the covert action program, a little bit off the radar. I was the only military guy attached to it, so it was a dream job for me. So
nice.
No one told me to get a haircut. No one told me. Great, going out every night, just rocking it. 2006 Baghdad.
Nice.
2006 Baghdad. Great.
The comeback.
Good job. And with this great guy we were working with. And oftentimes when you're working with people, at least my experience, I won't say overly generalize it, but in those parts of the world, they don't reward risk taking if that risk taking does not pay off. If you take a risk and that risk does not pay off, it's kind of like, you're losing your arm, you're losing your head.
Something.
Yeah.
They don't incentivize risk taking on the battlefield or in any facet of government or life in general.
Yeah.
That we work. So in this case, this Iraqi officer took risk. When the plan went down the drain, as soon as the first round started flying by our heads, like, he could still lead, he could adapt. He didn't just freeze up and not take risk. And not make decisions of any sort.
Right.
Oftentimes you see the no decision, because no decision is better than making the wrong decision. This was the opposite of that. And so we got to be good friends. And then years later, through the grapevine, I found out that he disappeared. And so then I thought, what if and there's a little more to the story that I won't say, but
yeah.
I said, what he was to resurface somewhere and be disgruntled that the U.S. left at the end of 2011, and he takes those skills and starts using them against the Western world.
Yeah.
That was really the foundation for the second novel. But 3, same thing. I'm so fired up for book number 3. Had to go to Russia. Had to walk in some of the same places that James Reese is going to walk in this third novel. And I'm super fired up.
Some people use Google Maps. Jack Carr goes to Russia in the middle of nowhere.
I was not going to North Korea, dude.
Yeah. We wanted you to, Mike. We really were hoping you'd go there personally.
The next one, I'm probably going to have to go jump back in there.
So Jack, wanted to ask one thing too, is that we were fortunate, the 4 of us actually sat with you a couple months ago, and coming from your background, living your dream now, and taking that even a next step is getting to meet your literary heroes. So I was fortunate I sat next to you during the Stephen Hunter interview, which was super cool because as someone who enjoys your books, to then watch you watching Stephen Hunter and run up to the stage to see him, it was just, it's cool to see that authenticity and that excitement to meet someone who, when you then meet them, you realize, man, they're down to earth and just like me too. And so how has that been for you? I think a year ago we talked at Thriller Fest and we were talking about David Morrell. And David Morrell with Brotherhood of the Rose and with his background, he was another literary hero that you get to meet. So what's that like? I know what that's like for me as a writer who meets other writers that I've looked up to and think, wow, they're really cool. They're really down to earth and they're actually giving me the time of day. And it's pretty neat feeling. So what's that been like for you?
It's been amazing. And before I got into this, as I started to write that first novel in my last year in the military, I thought, what, as I leave the military, I transition out and I try to break into this new profession. I think all the authors out there are going to want to keep me at arm's length. I think it's going to be very difficult for me because it's going to be competition. And that's just the outside world is a very competitive place. Because the SEAL teams is a very competitive place, kind of different because you're trying to raise the team, you're trying to all make each other better, but it's still very competitive. Like you want to be the shot, you want to be the fastest guy, you want to be the fastest swimmer, all that sort of thing.
Right.
So I thought it would be kind of similar outside, and that these guys would keep me at arm's length and wouldn't necessarily be very helpful. And what I found was the exact opposite of that, 180 degrees out from what I thought. And it happened right away with Brad Thor. One took a call with me, and then to introduce me to his editor, Emily Bessler, when the book was done. And that was his caveat. Like, if you finish this book, then I will introduce you to my publisher as a thank you for what you've done in the military.
Good motivation.
Yeah.
That's all I need,
Yeah.
Just open that door, man. Just open that door. I'm going to walk right through it.
Likes to say, but then I don't know, not a whim, I guess. So the book's coming out. It's still a few months. Like the galley had just come out or something for the terminal list. I'm like, what if I'm on David Morrell's website. It says contact. Like, well, maybe I'll put my email address in and say hello and kind of tell him who I am. And he got back to me in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was
like that too.
I was like, what? No way, I'm talking to David Morrell. Way. And then of course I have to tell him, all about how he influenced me growing up, to both being an author and going to the military, because in Brotherhood of the Rose there's one sentence in there where he talks about SEALs, a very important sentence. And I think it's the only one that he talks about SEALs in of those three novels, but might be wrong on that, but it was I read that paragraph, read that sentence, and that kind of confirmed that, oh yeah, okay, David Morrell's saying SEALs are the way to go, then that for sure. So being able to talk and then meet him at Thriller Fest and just incredible. He knows who I am, like crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody has been so nice in that regard. And Stephen Hunter, one of my heroes, an icon in the industry, of course. And luckily, I happened to know his daughter through someone, and just a random course of events. And so she put me in contact or whatever, and he blurbed the first novel, which was just, I couldn't believe it. Amazing.
Awesome.
Wow.
Just, he started emailing right off the bat, and he's such a great guy, so amazing. And then we launched our book tours together this year, which was
I was gonna say, you get to do a signing with your hero. That's pretty cool.
It was insane. We all went to dinner. Mark Graney's there. He's interviewing both of us, and then we all go to dinner together afterward and have a bunch of wine. And,
You're like, is this real?
dream come true. I can't believe we didn't get a picture of it. I texted it.
Oh, you guys
You didn't get a picture of that?
We did not get a picture of the 300 winner. I get a bunch of pictures from the signing and everything, but yeah, couldn't believe we didn't get it. So we'll have to do it again.
I'm sure you'll get a chance.
Yeah.
Heroes as peers. That's kind of a really cool,
Yeah.
cool ending to the story.
Steve and I are going to get on the range here over the next year at some point and send some rounds down. Right?
Yeah, nice.
Did you say you're gonna have Stephen Hunter out on the range?
Yeah.
Dude, that's
Okay.
awesome.
I think we need to go out there and chaperone this event.
Live podcast. I
Be
just heard.
like golf announcers.
I got my new 308. I'm ready.
The wine will start flowing probably about 4. Yeah.
And we put the weapons away at that point.
Jack, we'll agree to take the pictures for you at least. So that's why you want us there.
Yeah, we need to
We'll not
manage
forget
that
the picture.
process.
But isn't Stephen Hunter like the wittiest guy you'd ever met?
Oh, so
Yeah.
great. He's like that in emails too. Yeah. In person, he's like that. I mean, when he's speaking and in emails, like yeah, there's no one better.
Dude, it's so cool.
Amazing. So I feel very fortunate that everyone that I've met anyway has been Lee Child, so incredible. Blurb of the second book. Met him at I met him before I submitted to Emily Bessler. Randomly met him at SHOT Show, and a friend of mine who's the CEO of 511 Tactical calls me and knew I was writing a book and said, "Hey, you need to get down here because Lee Child's here." And I think he was contractually obligated to be at this party because there was about 3 people there. And, now the 511 parties are crazy, but back then they were not. So got to talk to him. He was so nice. I could not believe it. Told me he loved my title and told me he'd blurb the book for me if I got a publisher. And
Jeez.
crazy, just so nice. He was full of great advice right off the bat. Could not have been nicer. Now I've met him multiple times and blurred the book, of course. And he's just, all these guys have been so amazing to me. I feel just
What a ride, man! What a ride!
That's cool.
What a ride!
Yeah.
Jack, we want to be careful of your time, and we know we got time restraints tonight, so we're gonna end the big questions, but we have a lightning round for you. We each have about 5 questions. We're gonna ask you two words, 3 words in it, and quick answer. So I'm gonna fire it off.
Yeah, this is the one you're going to worry about.
I think I know the answer to this first one, but Guinness or Old Dusseldorf?
Old Dusseldorf and a long neck, of course.
There we go. Babyface smooth or mountain man beard?
Too easy.
Bow or tomahawk?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I know. I wanted to throw one at you. So
both really, because you kind of need that distance with the bow, and then you got to get in a little closer with the tomahawk to finish the job. So I'm going.
We'll just say depending on where he is, depends on which one you're going to.
A bow with a tomahawk at the top of it.
There you go. Slow bleed or quick lights out?
Well, for me or the bad guy?
Yeah, right.
Either or. You can answer it any way you'd like.
Save yourself and get a tourniquet on, so it depends on who you're talking about. Lights out for the bad guy. Well,
there we go. My final one, feature-length movie or Netflix series?
I'm going to keep that secret.
He knows something.
There we go.
Pretty cool. All right, I'm up.
I'll answer that one in a few months.
Yeah,
dude. You can't tease like that. That's not
on our next show.
We'll get you for Savage Son. We'll ask you that one. How's that?
A little later so that I can join you guys and have drinks, so I don't have to go down and pick up.
That's right. That's right. It's key.
All right. My turn. Favorite handgun?
You know what? I'm gonna have to go with that Sig P226 because it was on my hip for.
Yeah. 229 for me.
Nice.
Favorite president?
Oh, favorite president. Oh man, this is a good one. I'm gonna have to go with just Teddy Roosevelt, just because of without putting any thought into it, just because of the aura, because of the character, because of him serving his country, because of what he did.
Sam Hunter.
We still talk about him today
Yeah.
As this larger than life character that boxed in the White House and wrestled in the White House.
The guy got shot, and he continued with this.
Kept going.
He's a tough. Yeah, they don't make him like that.
That's a man.
Tough son of a bitch, that guy. All right. Iraq or Afghanistan?
Oh, they're just so Iraq was urban for me. Afghanistan was the mountains. So I like having the experience in both. They're so varied as far as terrain.
Right. Okay.
Iraq, not awful. Basra, not my place. Beautiful. northern Iraq in the spring when the snow's melting. I mean, it looks like parts of Napa Valley up there.
Wow.
I love it.
Okay.
Mountains of Afghanistan, when you're flying those helos and you're looking out both doors and you're seeing those mountains on either side of you because it's so high you're flying.
Right.
Jeez.
It's just beautiful. So I love those.
At a different time, a different place, different people, it would be a destination to go to. It's nothing.
Yeah, a place to explore.
Right.
Yeah.
Harvath or rap?
That's
Come on.
hard of a question. You stop it.
All right.
Who's the fit?
All right. And what's the last thing you ate?
Oh, I guess. My wife brought me some. It's very uninteresting. My wife brought me some a Mexican type salad today because I was just.
All right, there you go.
All right, that's
I just
it.
want to see if your schedule you could actually remember it because everything goes so fast with Jack Carr.
I did make some awesome halibut the other night, fresh caught up in the Queen Charlotte's.
Was that the one you Instagrammed?
Yeah, thanks for that, pal.
Yeah.
Made me look bad.
You know, it actually
It all look bad.
I wasn't worried about messing it up. I was worried about like the photos and everything. So I was totally not worried about the meal. It came out great. Had some wonderful wine. So yeah.
Look good, dude.
All right.
My questions might be a little more difficult.
Oh no.
Invasion USA or Missing in Action?
Oh man, dang, they're so different yet so the same. Ah, that is so tough. They kind of go in the same category.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Oh, see, that's just that. You're just that's just a cop out.
That's fair enough.
All right.
I didn't make him choose between actors. I went with two Chuck Norrises. So,
Mhm.
Favorite historical battle?
What is my favorite historical battle? It's weird to say favorite.
The one that interests you the most, I guess, would be a better way of saying that.
You know, Gettysburg is, but I think that might be just because of Killer Angels.
Ooh, yeah.
How that really humanized people on.
Oh, he's swearing again.
We lost your audio.
Oh, you there?
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
So just because of how that both sides were humanized through that novel and Killer Angels.
Yeah.
Got a little Bighorn, of course. So much has been written about it. I want to go up there at some point and walk it.
Dude, come. Yeah, Civil War is my thing too, man.
Yeah.
Both those places, I want to walk those grounds with people that really know those battles.
Yeah.
When you go, call me because I want to go.
Yeah.
Do that for
I went to a Antietam and it was stunning.
awesome.
So piggybacking on that, favorite historical.
Anything that turned people around at Moscow always has some sort of a fascination for me as well.
Gotcha. Favorite historical military figure?
Oh man, you're giving me some hard ones here.
That's good.
Well, I wrote about Ahmed Massoud today. I wouldn't say he's my favorite. He was killed
Fascinating guy, though.
Yeah.
in this day 18 years ago. And had he not been killed, he was assassinated by Al Qaeda operatives that posed as journalists and blew him up with some explosives in a.
That was in the camera, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The explosives, yeah.
In the battery pack attached to the camera, killed him, put a couple of shards of shrapnel into his heart. And he'd survived assassination attempts since the 70s.
Right.
Jeez.
KGB, rival warlords, like an amazing guy, especially in that part of the world that still influences today. So he comes to mind just because I did so recently write about it. Today is the anniversary of his death. And I think bin Laden is quoted as saying, "Hey, without this is not going to work." And
Right.
So that was at the top of their list. And actually, as journalists, they were acting kind of crazy. Like, hey, if we don't get this done before the 10th, we're leaving. Like they said, we're out of here. And they just made themselves such a pain that they're like, okay, we'll bring you in. And
yeah, the average person doesn't understand the impact of that assassination right before the bombings. But the last two are tied together. Martin Riggs or John McClane.
Riggs.
Thank you.
Knew
This is
that
a
was
little more complex. Mr. Joshua or Hans Gruber?
Ooh.
Once again, totally different characters. I love Joshua with the forearm over the lighter. It's all piece, but then Hans Gruber takes the fall at the end. So I gotta go with Mr. Joshua though.
Okay.
Yeah.
USF background, So you're kind of fighting a peer almost, or someone with the kind of this similar training, but. Hans Gruber, I learned about suits, London suits. from Die Hard. So that's a tough one. Well, they're too different. It's tough. Too different.
Love Hans Gruber though.
And expensive French cigarettes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Bearer bonds. You learned about bearer bonds.
Bear bonds. All right. I'm last. Here we go. Favorite game to cook on the Traeger?
Moose or elk? I haven't really. I've done a lot of Traeger cooking, but not nearly enough. Like, there's so much you can do on that thing.
Yeah.
But in general, love elk, love axis deer. But probably my favorite would be elk, though.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite caliber?
Oh, I would use back in the day, like in the mid '90s, I would have told you a 40. But there's been so much improvement on that 9mm round.
Yeah.
Really, all the technology and most of the effort has gone into improving the 9mm round, not improving these other.
Yeah.
So 45 is with our 1911s, you gotta hit the but every day I carry a 9mm, so I'm gonna go with what I carry every day. So yeah.
All right. This is one that Sean wanted me to ask you. Wrestle an alligator or wrestle a bear?
I did not have anything to do with that question.
For sure. Alligators, man, they're prehistoric. Those things freak me out.
Did we find something? Did we just find out something that scares Jack Carr?
Well, like snake. I'm not a big snake person. Not a big reptile person. Like, yeah, no.
Did they find this out during selection?
To us. So I was clear, and there's nothing but alligators in Southern California. So.
Yeah. All right. First row or exit row seat?
Of a plane?
Yeah.
So the model has definitely changed over the years. So before September 11th, I would have said, hey, so I want to be in a window seat, have time to think things through. If somebody's going down the aisle, they're more likely to hit the person that's on in the row right there. So I want time to think and be able to make a plan. After September 11th, I want to be right there on the aisle so I can act immediately.
Okay.
And what was the question though? Exit row or what?
Exit row or first row seating?
First row seating. So yeah, these days I'm going to take the time to get some sleep on these flights as well. I'll go with the first class if you're giving me an option. But if first class, business class isn't an option, then we'll go with the exit row.
Exit row seat. All right. Final question of the show for Jack Carr. Can I touch your beard?
That's a Houts question, all right.
You guys made me ask that. No, come on.
It's such a Hollywood question.
Hey, Jack, one more before we say goodbye. One more thing. I want to talk about how people at home can possibly help the charity that your family's involved with your son. If you want to talk about that, and maybe give us an email address, and we'll put it on our site as well.
Yeah. So the National Ability Center is headquartered here in Park City, and it's one of the main reasons that we moved up here. A middle child with some severe special needs that kind of naturally found its way into the pages of the second novel. I didn't plan it that way; it wasn't part of the outline, but as I got to that part, it kind of naturally flowed. So I put it in there. But National Ability Center also helps veterans with dealing with PTSD, dealing with TBI, helping them connect with their families in the outdoors. So really helping people of all abilities and disabilities reach their full potential, whatever that may be. And doing that through recreation. So getting people out rock climbing, getting them skiing, getting them mountain biking, getting them horses. It's just an amazing place. The Marriott family was instrumental in building it, keeping it going, and we're very fortunate that it's headquartered here. So the National Ability Center is that is called.
All right, we'll put it out there for you, man.
Well,
great job! I cannot believe this is your first podcast. You guys are seasoned pros.
This is
He's being nice.
We're just drunk.
It's easier. That definitely makes it easier.
Mrs. Carr has told us there's an elk spotted in the back, and I've looked it up. It's bow season, so why don't you go get that elk? We're going to let you go. If anyone has not read True Believer, 4 of us think you should. If you haven't got to Terminalist, go back and get that and get yourself ready for Savage Son, which is coming out unless the Department of Defense gives you a hard time again in April of 2020.
Dealing with that right now, so going to make some decisions here over the next
Oh.
So we shall see.
I still don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, well, that's
Still don't know.
Well, you can go to the website to find out because most of the beard pictures on the website are bearded. So that's it's a good .com. And then
He didn't answer my question if I could touch his beard, guy. That's I find that kind of evasive.
Well, Jack, we really appreciate your time tonight. We know
Yeah,
how busy you are, and we appreciate you coming on and talk to us.
you guys so much for having me on, and let's do it again soon.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jack.
See it.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks, man.
Good night.
A huge thank you to Jack Carr for our inaugural show. You can visit his website, officialjackcarr.com, to find his novels and links to where you can buy them online. Thanks again to my co-hosts. Special thanks to all of our viewers turning in to the Crew Reviews podcast. Again, our first one. We're really excited. If you would like that chance to win the personalized signed copy of True Believer, go to our YouTube channel, Crew Reviews. Like our page, and then leave a comment under the Jack Carr podcast, and you will be entered to win a personalized copy. Also, jump over to Twitter, go to our Twitter page, and you will see our pinned tweet. Retweet and like our pinned tweet, and you will also be entered for a chance to win that personalized copy as well. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time with another special guest. Salute, guys.
Salud.
Cheers.